The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome back to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick, your host from Firearm Mentor and Stress to Logic. And we are continuing the conversation with Wes Woodson, who is a keynote speaker and workshop presenter on, we're talking about treat others the way they want to be treated, and I objected, or I disagreed and said treat others the way they want to be treated. So folks, let's see what Wes has to say about my epiphany.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Actually, honestly, I would agree with you because I just learned that in my own relationship, right?
Okay.
I learned that with love languages, right? Because that's what you probably described it a little bit.
Right.
And for me, I learned that my top 3 love languages are it's not acts of service. It's words of affirmation, physical touch, and then gifts, right? Those are my top 3. But Katie, my partner, her top 3 are acts of service, physical touch, and kind of words of affirmation, and gifts are kind of tied for 3rd.
Okay.
But a lot of the times in our relationships, to your point, we show up and we love other people the way we want to be loved, not how they want to be loved.
Exactly.
So I just learned that. So it's so funny you bring this up because I just learned this like a year ago that we've been together for, I met her about 7 months after I got out of the outpatient program.
Okay.
So we've been together for 4 years. And me meeting her, for the first half of a relationship, I was loving her the way I want to be loved, right? I was giving her words of affirmation. I was giving her physical touch. When in reality, what opens her doors with what she needs, what opens doors to her heart is acts of service. But I was playing, basically, a lot of us when we're in relationships, we're speaking 2 different languages. It's like, I'm trying to love her the way that I want her to love me. But in reality, I need to love her the way she needs to be loved. And I have to, that's been a huge realization I've had in the last 12 months.
Right. And it's not only in love relationships. It's in every relationship. Business, friendships, parental, children, family. Can you tell everyone, you mentioned you have a book. How can someone order a copy of the book?
Yeah, if you want to support my work, I do offer my book on my website. So you can go, again, weswoodson.com, and there's a cool tab there. You just see a little bit about it. But there's also Amazon too. My goal with the book, right, was to make it accessible, and not just in terms of how you can actually support it and buy it, but also the language I use in the book, right? Because I found that when I was in the outpatient program 4 years ago, I was understanding that, okay, me being a huge learner, I mean, if you were to see my library, my room right now, I have a bookcase of probably about 50 books, right? And I love to read. But when I would go to look for books about anxiety, I would always find them written by people who didn't look like me, because I'm an African-American male. Mm-hmm. I'm 22 at the time, and that would put me in Gen Z. So I'm in your son's generation, using all those terms and rings and facts. And, I was like, where's the book that speaks to that? Where's the book that kind of has language that I use? So I want to make it accessible. So the book that I wrote, it's the equivalent of us talking on the phone. Right? I wrote it very conversationally. And the second thing is I also recorded it in audio form. So if you're not a reader, if you want to, consume it while you're doing a plethora of other things like the average person is, then I would recommend Audible as well. It's on there. So I Have Anxiety, So What is available anywhere where you get books.
Terrific. So you were stealing warheads from my table. Thanks a lot. Okay, not a little bit. I stole something from your table as well.
Oh,
okay, so yes, you have these. I'm going to call them. They look a little bit, and maybe I'm an old fart. I'm sorry, but they look like Pokemon cards. It's Frustrated Fox, Buey Breather, Kimmy Kindness, Melanie Moose, Captain Brave, Procrasta Puma, and Grady Gratitude. And these are all animals. Can you talk about their hero wisdoms? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so Happy Heroes. Happy Heroes is an exciting project I've been working on for the last 2 years. So remember how in the beginning of our conversation I said a lot of the things that I've done now, from my workshops to my keynotes to my book, it's really going back to what I learned in the outpatient program. And that's where Happy Heroes was born from. It was born from when I was in the outpatient program. I was learning better ways to deal with my anxiety. One of the ways I learned is to how can we externalize it? So I started to personify my anxiety as ACE, ACE, because it felt like anxiety was controlling every part of my life. No matter where I was, anxiety was there. So ACE was like this shadow. And when I started sharing my story around the country with kids, what I found is that kids were like, oh my gosh, I have an ACE too, but I want to call my ACE Zola. And it was it was so cool because they were personifying all these different ways that their mental health challenges show up in their life. And I had this thought of what if I personified the good? What if I personified the good aspects of my mental health? What if I personified gratitude, right? And that's where Grady the Gratitude Gator came from. What if I personified being kind to myself? That's where Kimmy the Kindness Kitten came from. And what if I personified my sense of bravery of when I have these level of days when I feel low, days when I feel like my glass is empty, but me waking up and putting my 2 feet on my floor, and that's a win for me, right? How do I personify that bravery of showing up despite feeling like I shouldn't be here anymore? Well, that's where Captain Bravery came from, or Captain Brave. So I have all these characters, and I'm thinking, this is really cool. But then going back to my first mission of, hey, we were never taught how to be kind to ourselves, right? How do we learn how to treat ourselves with respect, compassion, grace, love? That's what Happy Heroes are. Happy Heroes come together to be an animated universe of personified characters that help young kids, or kids of all ages, to be honest, because you saw the kids at the conference. They were college teenagers, but they loved it. Help these young kids learn better ways to learn self-compassion. And when you have Captain Course Drop, a lot of these students deal with should I just drop this course? And they kind of feel this internal frustration. But you could have, hey, maybe you can tap into Grady Gratitude, who can help you understand that, hey, there was a lot that this course did teach me, and I'm grateful for it. So helping these kids learn these interpersonal skills in a very Trojan horse-like fashion, right? My vision, because you hit the nail right on the head, is to build the mental health, or the Pokemon version of mental health.
Okay.
And that's what I want to do. And that's the long-term goal of really building out the intellectual property, having children's books, plushies, getting into schools with the social emotional learning curriculum, and making it more accessible for kids and approachable.
How do you find non-college schools? What's your how do you market yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. So again, one of my secrets that I do, and you're saying non-college, so your high school and middle school?
High school, middle school, even elementary school.
That's a great question. So I'm going to answer it in 2 ways. One, and a story, and two, it's just a secret tool that I use. One, the story is when I got out of the outpatient program, my mom, she's an actual guidance counselor or school adjustment counselor herself. So she's a social worker by trade, and she has her own mental health private practice where she sees clients. But anyway, so I'm getting out of the outpatient program. I'm this was March 2020, right? So I'm the world's frozen at this point. The global pandemic, everyone's what the heck is next? And here I am, 22 years old, sitting at my kitchen counter, not knowing what was I going to do, because I'm about to graduate college. Many of my friends who had jobs after college, their offers are being rescinded. So it's everyone kind of has this huge question mark on their future. And for me, I was what am I going to do next? So my mom, one day she's cleaning in the kitchen, trying to disinfect the whole counter, because she's oh my gosh, I don't want to have COVID in my kitchen.
Right.
So she's cleaning the counter, and because she's shaking her purse, and out falls this pamphlet of her purse. She picks it up. She's oh my gosh, I forgot all about this. And I'm what is it? So she gives me the pamphlet. It's a pamphlet for this organization called Minding Your Mind. Minding Your Mind is a mental health nonprofit organization. And what they do is they actually hire young adults like myself to share their story about how they learned how to deal with their own mental health challenges in middle schools, high schools, even elementary schools. So that's where I got my start 3 years ago. And I started speaking in Massachusetts, where I was born, in middle schools, high schools, and even elementary schools. And that's why I got the start of like speaking professionally, right? And that's how it all began. And then I left Minding Your Mind and went out on my own. And I prioritized the college market because that's kind of closer to my age range.
Right.
I'm 26 going on 27 next month. So I feel like I could relate more to like the Gen Zer who's like a senior, junior, even a freshman in college.
Right.
But I speak occasionally, still in high schools and middle schools. But the secret is, I got my start Minding Your Mind. But the secret is now, is if I'm speaking in a school, perfect example, next month I'm speaking back in Massachusetts. If I'm speaking at a school in Massachusetts, I'm going to Google all the local high schools around that college or around that school. And I'm going to pick up the phone and call.
Okay.
When I pick up the phone and call, just old-fashioned cold call sales. I'm going to tell them, hey, my name is Wes Woodson. I help students learn self-compassion to better deal with their anxiety. I would love to come to your campus to do a cool workshop. And what they see is like, oh my gosh, we love something like this, or oh, we're not interested, we can't afford you. And then boom, they hang up the phone, and I'm not sad, I'm understanding, and move on. But that's kind of my tactic, and that's how it's grown. So I prioritize the college market, but the secondary market for me is high schools and middle schools. I try to find schools close to the colleges to extend my programming.
Okay, very good. What am I not asking you? What final thoughts do you have? What did I not hit the nail on the head with? I don't walk in your shoes. I walk in my own shoes. So the floor is yours. Open mic.
Open mic. I love that. You will be the first show I've ever been on that has ended the show or kind of moved towards the end of the show like that. So I appreciate that.
Oh, good.
I would really say that what I wanted to talk about further is trying to really help people understand how to be kinder to themselves. In fact, like as we talked about, my book, my course or my program building out for the College Speaker Academy, my speaking in schools, my workshops that I do, my coaching and consulting that I do, all of these different avenues, they all belong to my parent company that I call it, the umbrella, which is Woodson Empowerment. And the mission with that is to help mankind be kinder to themselves. I'm extremely passionate about that because I've grown up for so long, hating my glass. And I actually came up with this unique framework of, we all have heard that proverbial phrase of like, pour into your glass. But I have started to do it with students of how can we pour into you? So it's an acronym. So P is like, how can we pause instead of being on this imaginary hamster wheel of like going? How can we pause and ask ourselves, how am I feeling? Checking in with ourselves. And how can we objectively observe what comes up when we try to ask that question? And not necessarily judge, not internalize, not try to rush to fix and solve, but how can we just be objectively curious about where am I feeling anxiousness? Where am I feeling depressed? Do I feel a sense of like heaviness in my chest, my stomach? Again, activating that sense of mindfulness. How can we try to understand what we need and why we need it, right? What are the concrete things? Maybe I just need to call a friend. Maybe I'm feeling very lonely right now. I could just use some human connection. Maybe I'm feeling like, I'm still feeling like not over my ex-girlfriend or whatever, and trying to understand why. And then how can we, for the R, how can we, for the first part of the R, how can we release the expectations of having everything well put together all the time? Release that. You're not a machine. You're a human being. And then how can we rewrite a new narrative? And me walking students through that process, me walking through the P to the R, that's what I'm so passionate about. So when I get the chance to go on shows like that, my ginormous invitation to anyone listening to this is how can you pour into you today? I try to ask myself that question every single day. I try to pause. I try to observe. I try to understand. And I try to rewrite in the narrative. And I think if we can pour into our glasses more, how much overflow can we create in our own selves to then share with other people? And that's what I'm passionate about. So thanks for giving me the floor to share that.
Great. We're all autobiographers. We're all writing our own stories, maybe not on paper or on a computer. And so I greatly appreciate what you just said. How I'm tough on myself. I am my own worst enemy. That's what my mother used to tell me. And I've learned in the last 5-10 years that it's more about progress over perfection.
Yep.
So moving the football chains down the field is more important than getting a field goal, because ultimately you'll get the field goal, or the touchdown or whatever. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is Wes Woodson. He's a phenomenal guy, phenomenal speaker. I really highly encourage people, if they're interested, to check out his website, which is Wes, W-E-S, Woodson, WOODSON.com. Wes, thank you very much for your time today and for educating our listeners. And seriously, people, if you have questions, please reach out to him. You can always reach out to me as well. And thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
I want my listeners to know that this is my dream, teaching people about safety. If it weren't for you, if it weren't for my listeners, I couldn't live my dream. So on behalf of my family and myself, I want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me to live my dream. And I also want to continue to live my dream, and I'm excited to continue to spread the word of safety. Recently, I began a new service as a conference keynote speaker. So if anyone would like for me to speak at future events, or if anyone knows of an introduction or would like to discuss how we can work with one another, I'd love to do just that. The keynote speaking website is www.stress2logic.com. That is STRESS2logic.com. If you're aware of any conference speaking engagements where you'd like to have me speak, I'd love an introduction. You can always share my electronic business card, which is Marcus Melnick, MarcusMelnick.com. Now, back to the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to share an experience that I had with a firearms manufacturer that I was quite pleased with. A lot of people poo-poo Taurus. Oh, it's a budget gun, blah, blah, blah. I have to say their newer designs, the ones that have come out in the last couple of years, are pretty darn good. And I have one. I have a TX-22, which is one of the firearms that I have my students qualify on if they do not own a firearm before the concealed carry class. So I had a student, and he was shooting way to the right. And I'm looking, I'm trying to figure it out. His technique looks good. And I look at the gun, and the rear sight is moved all the way to the right. So I was like, put the gun down. I have a backup. So I looked at it, and the screw that was holding the rear sight assembly together was missing. I looked in, it's a black screw. I looked in my black bag. It's gone. I don't know where it is. It got backed out. Have no idea where it is. So I called Taurus, and I said, it's a minor part. Probably cost a few pennies, really. And I said, I need this rear sight screw because the sight's sliding around all over the place. And they put me on hold for a very brief amount of time. They came back and they said, we are out of stock on the screws, but we're going to send you an entire rear sight assembly that has the screw in it. And they did. Well, about a week later, I got it in the mail, reattached everything. Of course, I used Loctite this time, but I just want to compliment Taurus for their phenomenal customer service. Really a positive experience. My family has owned Tauruses for decades and decades, or a Taurus for decades and decades and decades. I did buy one 10, 15 years ago that just had a ton of problems on. I sent it in, they repaired it, but I ultimately got rid of it. So I had kind of a sour taste in my mouth because that firearm just wasn't a good firearm. The TX-22, holy cow, it got awards for a reason. And that reason is it's a phenomenal firearm. So if you're looking for a 22, I believe you have to get the compact one in Illinois because of capacity issues, I believe. Not 100% sure. Oh, it's because it's got a threaded barrel. That's why. The large one. So if you're interested in a 22 for a range gun, not a bad choice. Now it's soapbox time. As we all know, we've heard it all over the news. There was the CEO of a healthcare or health insurance organization was in plain sight assassinated in New York City as he was going into the building for his meeting. Now, they caught the alleged shooter. We don't know if he's the shooter. I can't comment on it publicly because then I'd be open to liability, but all indications have pointed to this person, and if the police have arrested them, then the police have enough probable cause to make the arrest and issue charges. He's now fighting extradition from Pennsylvania to New York. However, he should stand trial in New York, and if he's innocent, he should be declared innocent. If he's guilty, he should be declared guilty. But I want to get on my soapbox and say, first of all, no one deserves to die. Like, really, you're killing a figurehead because you don't like a philosophy, or allegedly he did it because he didn't like corporate greed. Now, I've also heard that whoever the offender is, they did it because they were denied claims, and there were some already too soon memes out there saying, oh, well, the CEO's claim for lead poisoning has been denied, and he died. And that's supposed to be cheeky and funny, and it's really not. But that's an opinion. I'm a humorist, so if I don't think it's funny, someone else might think it's funny, and apparently they did because they posted it. The point I'm making is that, holy cow, what kind of society have we turned into where people are celebrating this assassination? People celebrated the 2 attempted assassinations on President-elect Trump. What is wrong with people? Holy cow. Look, we can disagree and still be friends. It's cool. We can disagree and be vehemently opposed on an issue, but still be friends. I have several friends who are anti-gun. They hate guns. I love guns. We don't talk about it. I have taken some of these anti-gun people to the range and kind of changed their mind a little bit. Actually, I didn't change their mind. The activity and the safety surrounding it, because I'm Mr. Safe, that's what changed their mind. But it's okay to disagree with people. It's okay to really dislike public figures, whether they are a CEO or the president or an elected official. It's okay to dislike them. It is not okay to commit violence against anyone unless you are defending yourself. And according to Illinois law, you have to be defending yourself against an action that will cause death or great bodily harm to a human being. That means in Illinois, your dog is considered property. So if a coyote is attacking your dog, according to the law, you cannot shoot the coyote because you're defending property. Same thing if someone is stealing your catalytic converter out of your driveway. You can't go out there and just shoot them because they're stealing property. Now, there is an exception in the law about defending property, and if you go to one of my classes, which are all listed at firearmmentor.com/classes, you can find out what that one exception is. And you don't really need to be injured to respond. You have to be in imminent danger. Imminent means immediate, right freaking now. So if somebody's acting in a way that causes or is about to cause death or great bodily harm, and I have a definition of great bodily harm, but I have to qualify it. I am not an attorney. This is not an attorney's viewpoint. It's not legal advice. Okay, so now my lawyers are happy that I said that. But my interpretation of great bodily harm is something that will land a person in an emergency room. So it's beyond basic first aid. It's beyond a Band-Aid. It's beyond an ice pack. It's someone that needs additional physician or physician assistant, whether that's stitches, broken bones, internal injuries, concussion. It could be anything. And that will allow someone, they may, quote, may, M-A-Y, be justified in using their firearm. If you don't have an insurance plan, I can make a recommendation. Please reach out to me at marcus@firearmmentor.com. There are several companies out there that are great that I have done business with that are phenomenal. There are also companies out there that are less than phenomenal, and I don't poo-poo anyone on the radio. However, I can certainly have a little bit of a private conversation with you if you're interested in learning more. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I really hope it helped someone with their own anxieties, particularly if they're a young adult in college. I know my son is in college, and he was so happy to be in college. The only thing that I detected he wasn't happy on was the amount of studying he has to do for finals, which he took this week. And by the time this airs, he will have been home. So my heart is full once again. Tune in next week for another episode. We'll have another interviewee or we'll have some firearm updates. But please stay safe out there and have a wonderful holiday season. Really celebrate it with your family because that's what life is all about. And blood doesn't determine family. Loyalty determines family. I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you for listening and see you next week or hear you next week.
We have monthly concealed carry license CCL classes in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. Dates can be seen at firearmmentor.com/classes. If you have a question, we can be reached at www.firearmmentorcard.com. That is our electronic business card, has all of our contact information and links in it. It's the easiest way to get a hold of us. Until next time, stay safe out there, and I'll see you at the shooting range. This is Marcus Melnick from Firearm Mentor signing off. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.